Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. This week we have Morgan Gillis from FlexibleFoodie.com and also 21daysofchallenge.com. She's a big fan of challenges, changing your mindset, changing your nutrition, and just becoming a better human. Topics that we do talk about in today's podcast. We do talk about a lot about mindset and changing and controlling your thoughts, because we both agree on that point, that if you can control your thoughts, you really can own your life. Something I talked about going back to my lessons learned from over 200 episodes of doing this podcast. She's in complete agreement. We dive into that a little bit more, but we also talk about more largely in the conversation, morning routines. What should your morning routine look like? What are some of the things that you should knock out? And does it matter if it's super routine or regiment, or is it just the fact that it gets done? You know, morning routines are so popular. They're all the rage. Everyone thinks that you should be doing one, but are they for everyone? And if so, what should you be doing? And then we also talk about macros. You know, we have a lot of different resources about macronutrient tracking and what you should be doing, tracking calories, macros, and all these other things. She dives into it a little bit more about what people should be doing on a more individual basis, and it's some really interesting stuff. So if any of those topics seem to interest you, definitely stick around for this episode. So without any further ado, here is Morgan Gillis. All right, Morgan, welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. I'm glad to have you here today.
I am glad to be here, Jared.
Yeah, so we're going to get things rocking. We'll start with a fitness challenge. Could you give me and everyone listening a fitness challenge?
A fitness challenge, I would say this might be really beneficial for your listeners, is just to stretch or to do yoga for 10 minutes every single morning. I know for me, when I was still am really into fitness, but it's, into CrossFit and you're training, but you miss that stretching piece a lot, right? And it's just so key and it's easy to neglect. So I feel like that would be a pretty awesome fitness challenge.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way. Is that something that you're doing these days? Still stretching?
I do. Yeah,
Awesome.
Every morning for 10 minutes, yeah.
Awesome. And are you following any structure like ROMWOD? Or are you just doing what feels tight? Like, how are you going about it?
I kind of alternate. Like, I used to do ROMWOD. I think that's super, super helpful. It gives you that structure, maybe puts you into poses that you're not used to doing. So I really like that, and I go back and forth with that. Recently, I've been having some troubles with my feet and almost getting like plantar fasciitis. So I've actually been using that time recently to do my physio stretches.
Nice. Perfect.
But regardless, something like that. And then I'd like to, once those physio stretches are over, I'd love to do some yoga.
Awesome. All right. Well,
yeah.
How about a mental toughness challenge?
A mental toughness challenge. I would say pick a habit or behavior that you have that's not serving you and give it up for a month. So one example for me is dark chocolate. I am, into nutrition, and, I want to still have like a treat, I guess. And so dark chocolate seems like a healthier version of a treat.
Right.
But I took that way too, I took that way too far. Like, I was eating absurd amounts of dark chocolate, and it just got to the point where it was literally an addiction for me. And I just decided, you know what, this is going to be the most uncomfortable thing I could do, is to say, I'm just cold turkey, not going to have this for a whole month. But anything like that, even if it's, maybe it's you get up every morning and you hit the snooze button or something like that, it's like, just challenge yourself to take a habit that's super, super ingrained and throw it out the window and change it to a new one.
I like that. And that's, often the way we get better is by taking away, not adding more things on.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it kind of shows you, like, it not only does it build discipline, but it just shows you that no matter what habit or pattern you have that you don't like, you always have the power to change it.
Now, how about a book recommendation?
A book recommendation, one that I think maybe your listeners haven't heard of. I think it's called Change Your Thoughts, by Dr. Wayne Dyer. It's about the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, and it was written like 25 centuries ago. It's like an ancient spiritual text, but it's just really, really good. I think the power of your thoughts is crazy, and this one just kind of teaches you to change the way you're looking at things, and the things you're looking at are going to change. That's kind of the idea behind it.
That's a pretty cool book. How did you stumble across that one?
I think a friend recommended it to me, and I love it. Like I go back and listen to it all the time. And honestly, anything done by Wayne Dyer, I don't know. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't.
Oh, anything done by him is just so good.
I'll check it out. I'm in complete agreement that I really think that if you can master your thoughts, you can master your life. So I think that'd be a really interesting book to check out. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now how about an introduction? You can just give us a background, take us as far back as you need to, how you got on the path that you are on today, and what you're most passionate about.
I'll say I'll go back, very briefly, but as far as high school, came out of high school, I did forestry for 2 years. I realized once I graduated that wasn't really for me. There was still something missing there. So then I went into engineering thinking, okay, well, if I can't find something I love doing, I'm just going to make a lot of money, and then I'll do what I love on my free time. So I went into engineering with that mindset, did that for a year, started doing a summer job in that field, and I was just having this moment where I still knew that wasn't it. This wasn't going to light me up. This wasn't going to excite me. And so at the same time, I kind of knew that it was health and fitness stuff. I was into CrossFit and I loved it, and eating healthy and nutrition. And I just knew it was something in that direction. That was kind of where I wanted to go. But I thought maybe going back to kinesiology, or taking a different, program in university that was related to that kind of stuff. But at that point, I had already been in school for 3 years. I'd spent a lot of time. I'd spent a lot of money. And I thought to myself, well, what if you spend 4 years in this, kinesiology degree, and you get to the end of that and you don't like this one either? You've spent 7 years and a ton of your money in school. And so I was kind of having this like crisis. And I, at the same time, I was super into CrossFit, and you're definitely familiar with Barbell Shrugged.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So at the same time, I've been listening to their podcasts on YouTube, and, Mike and those guys, they throw a little bit of personal development stuff in there. And, they were talking about how you're the 5 people, or you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. And I was like, you know what? I want to do what these guys are doing. Like, I want to do something like this. I want to hang out with these guys. I just feel like I need to learn from these guys. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can go intern for them, for their CrossFit gym. Didn't have a certification, didn't have anything, no coaching background or anything. I just kind of wrote those guys a letter. I think I wrote Mike a letter, a little essay on like why I could, come down and intern for them. And he's like, okay, crazy Canadian, if you want to pack up your stuff and move down to Memphis, like, sure, So I dropped out of engineering. I call my parents, I'm dropping out of school. The A student is dropping out of school. Left all that stuff behind, drove down to Memphis, Tennessee, and I started interning at their CrossFit gym. And
so OG Barbell Shrug before they even got to Cali.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I moved down there to hang out with them, right?
Yeah.
And when I moved down there, they were actually in the process of moving to Cali.
Nice.
So when I got there, they actually left. And I was like, damn it. Like, I'm kind of like, this is the whole point,
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I got into, I guess, before I got there too, I quickly, I took my CrossFit level 1, then I went down there. And when I got there, I interned at their gym and coached for, I think it was 6 months, while I took some nutrition certifications and that kind of stuff. And then eventually, I moved out to Cali with them with Barbell Shrugged and started doing social media marketing for them. So that's kind of, I guess that's kind of my background, and all those things that I gained in the process, you know, the CrossFit, the nutrition coaching, the little bit of background in online marketing, that's kind of what's leading me to what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and so tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now, because I guess you got your internship, got your skills, and now you're kind of doing your own thing, right?
Pretty much, yep. So what I'm doing now is some macro coaching, some nutrition coaching, and I've been doing that for the last probably 3 or 4 years. And one thing I'm really, really excited about now is I'm just starting to move into more of a group coaching, but it's not limited to nutrition. So one of the things I'm starting now is launching these 21-day challenges. And the thing I have going on right now is a morning routine challenge.
Okay, so let's talk about morning routines. Why do you think that those are so important?
Just, you know, Tim Ferriss has this quote, and I bring this up all the time when I talk about this, but if you win the morning, you win the day. And I just think that's so true. You know, how you start your morning has a huge effect on your energy and your confidence and your focus and your productivity throughout the day. You know, even you look at like Newton's first law of motion, which is that an object in motion, you know, wants to stay in motion at the same speed and in the same direction that it's already going, right? So I just think that if you start your morning in a way that just gets you energized and fired up and motivated, you're just going to carry that positive energy throughout the day.
Yeah, I think the morning's really important, and so elaborate a little bit more on what you think. Do you think it's just any routine? Do you think there's some good habits that we should be picking up in our morning routine? What do you think we should be doing in the mornings?
I mean, there's a ton of good habits, you know, like you can go on YouTube and type in morning routines and find a ton of stuff. Are there any specific habits I think people should be doing? I mean, there's 6 that I've kind of identified as like really high impact morning routine habits, I guess, which for me are gratitude, hydration, goals, or, you know, your vision or goal setting, reviewing that daily, movement, a good healthy breakfast, and learning. So those are kind of like the 6 habits that I advocate, especially in the 21-day challenge. But there's a ton of good stuff that you can find, and it always just depends on, you know, what you need, and maybe if there's something that's holding you back, taking something, you know, putting it into your morning routine that's going to address that thing that's holding you back. Yeah,
that's what. So I've been a big morning routine guy for many years now, and one thing that I've learned about my morning routine, and this used to make me think that I wasn't a routine individual, is that I stopped doing the same thing every morning. And, you know, some people say that's not good, some say it's bad, but the point is I have a morning routine, in my opinion. That's the thing that I do every day. But I wake up and now I do whatever I feel like doing, just in my morning routine, my routine window. What would be your take on something like that?
Well, what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, like if I want to wake up and go for a 3-mile run, I'll do that. If I want to meditate and then sit in front of some red light, I'll do that. If I want to listen to an audiobook, I'll do that. Like, it's just whatever I feel like doing that morning, because it gets me outside of a box. Been doing a morning routine for several years. After a certain point, I was starting to feel a little boxed in, you know? I guess that might be the negative side of a morning routine. So what are your thoughts on not being consistent? You won't hurt my feelings on any particular activity.
I mean, the thing is, you got to go by what works for you, right? And if that other routine for you wasn't working well, then I mean, it's time to make a change, right? I think having a structured morning routine can be really beneficial, at least in the beginning, just to build that discipline and build those habits, right?
Right.
I like that you give yourself like kind of like a time limit. Yeah.
Yeah, because, well, in the morning, I only have so much time before I have to take my son to school. So,
right.
Yeah, so I'm on a limited time schedule in the morning.
So in that way, I guess, you know, your morning routine is kind of like self-care for you, right? Like whatever you feel like you need in that moment, and you just intuitively go do that thing, and you you probably have the discipline that, if you feel like your body, needs a run, or I think you said red light or something like that, then you have the discipline to go do it. Right. But I think in the beginning, when you're just trying to build that, having something structured just makes it easier to cultivate that discipline.
I think that's a really good point, because the more ambiguity that you have when you're trying to develop something new, the harder it's going to be. You're like, what am I doing? So that's really good. So someone who doesn't have a morning routine and they're just looking to get started, what do you recommend, or what advice could you give to them about getting started, sticking with it? Because there's always the motivation burnout, right? Like, I don't know, you'll be motivated for 72 hours, or some people will be motivated for 2 weeks, but it's eventually going to end, and then it has to be disciplined. So what do you recommend people do to get past that? When they run out of the hype and it's all on them.
I would say, I've kind of two parts to this, and one of them is how I structure the morning routine to kind of help prevent that from people kind of burning out on the motivation side. But the other thing is being clear on why you are doing it, right? Like, an example for me would be, every time, like I talked earlier about one of the weekly challenges being, pick something that you do that's a habit and give it up, right? And for me, that was dark chocolate. And I guess for me, I have to keep in mind the motivation. Like, why am I doing this? When it gets hard, why am I not going for that? And for me, I just wanted to be more disciplined, and I wanted to build that because it's the foundation for everything, right? Like, if you're disciplined, all of a sudden you've got good habits, and then all of a sudden you've got good character, right? But for me, it was like every time I would see chocolate, I would literally like actually flex my bicep and just be like, boom, like, this is me.
Nice.
This is hard, but I'm building a discipline muscle right now. Like, there's a purpose to this. You know what I mean? So I think if people can remember why they started, they constantly go back to that, then it makes the routine a lot easier, even when, that kind of like inspiration fizzles out in a sense.
I think that's awesome. Connecting your daily activity to some bigger why is such a necessity if you want any chance or any shot of continuing onward. I think that's really, really awesome.
And that's one of the reasons that, knowing what your vision is and knowing what your goal is, but reviewing that daily is part of the morning routine, right? Because I want people to go through their day and know how the little daily actions that they're taking map to the larger goal, right? So it's like that motivation, even in the moment, if you don't feel like going to the gym, or you don't feel like going to this job or whatever, it's like, well, this going to the gym maps to my, wanting to be, have this energy or this weight or whatever, going to work maps to my goal of saving enough money so that I can travel to, Italy, right? Like, just kind of knowing why things fit in and being like, okay, every action I'm taking has a purpose.
Now let's break down your routine a little bit more, if you don't mind. So gratitude, I think we all get that. I think that's really, do you do written, or do you just mentally go through a gratitude practice?
For me, these days, I've been doing this routine for so long that it's become such a habit that I've just started doing it mentally because it's faster.
Yeah.
But in the challenge, I advocate that people write it down. And to be honest, I might even switch back to writing it down, just because sometimes I think that helps it sink in a little bit deeper. But just getting people to write down just 5 things that they're grateful for in the morning.
And then I would love to know more about, I'll skip around here a little bit, so the goals and the vision. So I think you just mentioned that it's kind of, you recommend that being part of your daily routine, but I would just love for you to elaborate more on what you would encourage people to do during that time period of their morning routine.
The goals and the vision part?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing is you got to figure out what your vision is or what your goal or goals are, right? But what I want people to go through in the morning, because I don't want to put, there's 6 parts of this morning routine, right? And I'm very mindful of the fact that people aren't going to do a morning routine that's crazy long, right? So I do kind of try to make it simple, but what I really want them to do is just think about, just go through the whole process and think about, okay, what is the goal? When do I want this by? Why do I want it? Which is like the really key part of it, why are you doing this, right? Think about that. And then just think about, okay, what's the next step for me? And what's the one thing that I can do today, or something small I can do today, so that people will actually go out and take action on it. So that's kind of the sequence of things I want people to go through.
Okay, awesome. And now if we were to skip to kind of like a healthy breakfast, what do you think is the best way to get energized nutritionally in the morning?
That depends too, right? Like for me in the summer, I really like smoothies, you know? It's just so easy to get some, like a ton of good stuff in there, spinach and berries, and you throw a little protein in there. Maybe some extra stuff like cacao or maca powder, or, you know, whatever you want. They're just so customizable, and they're so quick, and they're so easy. I really love that in the summer. Right now, you know, in the winter, I don't actually know where you live, Jared, but I'm in Canada and it's snowing.
Yeah, I'm in Texas. It's
okay.
just not cold by your definition, but cold by my definition right now.
Yeah. So for me, like right now I'm doing oatmeal, you know, and I'll put some grass-fed collagen protein in there and some oats, and I'll put some chia seeds, and, you know, you just mix and match so much stuff like maca and cacao and goji berries and whatever you want. Cause it's just, I want something warm in the winter, right? I think those two are really easy and really customizable. But it just depends too. Like in the challenge, I have people figure out what that is for them, you know, like what does your body need? Like what foods are like your superfoods, so to speak. And I give people some resources to find a breakfast that they know that they're going to enjoy, and they know that, you know, they're going to want to eat every morning, and that's going to fuel them, right? So it could be so much different stuff, but, you know, it could be a salad, you know, it could be you doing meal prep and baking some of those little egg quiche things, right? And having those just ready to go. But it's got to be something that's quick, with good ingredients, good quality ingredients that are going to make you feel good, right? Like you probably don't want to be eating Fruit Loops for breakfast, you know?
Yeah, that's probably not the best way to get going in the morning.
Probably not. Maybe for an hour until you have like that carb crash.
Right. Awesome. So I'm gonna throw a little. I didn't prep you for this one, but it's a question I'm bringing back. I haven't asked a guest in a long time. We call it the book question.
The book question.
So not to be confused with the question I ask at the end about becoming a better human. So you have to have two different answers.
Okay.
So say there's a nationwide curriculum implemented. Prime Minister calls you up and says you're responsible for one chapter of the book. So every single child in Canada will have to read your chapter and be tested on and pass before they can graduate high school. What would your chapter be about?
Okay, it's kind of along the lines. Well, no, you said it can't be the last thing. It can't be the advice for becoming a better human.
Yeah.
Okay, I cannot do that. I would say my chapter would be on. It's just something that's just sinking in so deep for me right now. But just the power of your thoughts, you know, just the power of your self-talk, the power of what you believe, the power of your vision, the power of what you focus on expands. You know, like. It would just be on the power of your thoughts, and how if you can change the way you think, you can really achieve any outcome. That would be my chapter for sure. And you just can go so far down the rabbit hole on that stuff. It's crazy. And it even gets to sound a little woo-woo, but like there's also some truth behind the woo-woo, I feel. Oh yeah, I've been pretty far down the rabbit hole, and it gets really woo-woo. And that doesn't, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. It's just, it definitely can go that way pretty fast. So someone looking to control their thoughts a little bit more, they're listening to this, they're like, yeah, how do you even go about that? And like you said, you could spend years researching this stuff. So I'm not actually looking for a complete answer, just to start. Where would someone start if they're just looking to control their thoughts a little bit more on a daily basis? It's interesting because some of this stuff is built into the morning routine too, but just like, gratitude, let's say, right? Like if you're stuck in negative thinking patterns, and you're always looking at the glass as half empty versus half full and that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, this is happening to me, and just all those thoughts are kind of swirling around in your mind. It's like if you just do this simple thing and you write down 5 things you're grateful for, it's like you are now changing your thoughts to thoughts of positivity and optimism and, just being grateful for what you already have, right? If there's that, I don't know who said this, but like what you focus on expands, right? And so part of the goals and vision stuff is like, don't focus on what you don't want, focus on what you want, and that's going to expand for you. Like an example of that too would be even me in this podcast, like I haven't done that many podcasts. This is probably my third one. And so there's always that fear of like, what if I'm not interesting enough? Or what if, I don't have anything to say? Or what if, people hate the podcast or all this stuff, right? But it's like, I caught myself today before I got on the podcast. And I'm like, Morgan, what are you doing? Why are you thinking about what you don't want? Like, think about what you want. Like, take your mind off that, So that's a way. And then another powerful way to change your thoughts is with podcasts or books or, podcasts like this one, right? Where you're you're just getting new ideas and it's programming your mind in a sense to think more positively, to think more optimistically, to get more ideas, versus, maybe you're listening to your coworkers complain at work, or maybe you're listening to the doom and gloom of the news, right? Like all those things can help you kind of change your thoughts. But, even just trying to listen to, if these negative thoughts are coming up, like, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever, like just reframing those and being like, oh, okay, that's nice that my brain wants to do this, but let me just try to change this behavior. There's just so much stuff you can do, but those are just a few.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that they are in control of their thoughts. They think that their thoughts are themselves, like that they're unchangeable. You were born the way that you are, and, this is how you're going to think. It's interesting that you bring this up because not that long ago, we just passed the over 200 different interviews here on this podcast. And I did a solo episode, just talking about my biggest takeaways from interviewing lots of different people and going all over the place and doing that. And that was one of my biggest takeaways, was being able to control your thoughts. If you can control your thoughts, you really win. You win at the game of life, in my opinion. And trying to make that a habit, like what you're talking about, building like starting out with some sort of like morning routine, being able to control your thoughts. When people think about new habits that they want to create, they don't normally think about thought control, mind control as something that they could do, right? But all the things that you're talking about in your morning routine, you're saying are ways to start down that process without putting the goal like number 7 on your morning routine, like, okay, well, control thoughts, because you're already kind of doing that in the process, right?
100%. Yep.
All right, I think that is awesome. All right, well, let's jump to nutrition. I'd love to get your take, macros, nutrition in general. Like, I guess we'll start with, where do you sit on the nutrition? I don't know. There's the carnivore on one scale, and then there's hardcore vegan on the other, right? So where are you on the on that scale?
I personally am kind of a carnivore in a sense.
Okay.
I do best, I think, with paleo kind of eating. I used to be really, really strict with that. I'm not as crazy with that now, but that's when I generally feel the best, not like crazy high amounts of carbs, like, decent amounts of protein and some fats. But I'm also, I think everyone is very, very unique and very different. And there's, I took, in addition to some of my nutrition courses, I took this year-long, it was a holistic health coach training program. Mm-hmm. And just one thing that we really, really went into was just how bio-individual people can be, So I don't really agree, I guess, with the vegan thing. Like, that's just, I've tried it. I actually really tried it, and I just couldn't really work for me. But you know what? For somebody else, that probably works really, really well. And I don't know. Like, I think that if that's working for you, go for it, right? Like, it wouldn't be my thing. And I have even some macro clients who, they want to they want to be, they're vegan, and so their protein can't be as high and that kind of stuff. And I just accommodate, right? I wouldn't necessarily advocate that, but if that's what works for you, then go for it, right? Like I'm not against it.
I'm against it. No, just I'm kidding. I do think after having coached a lot of people in nutrition as well myself, like you learn that some things do work for other people surprisingly well, and some things don't. And that I haven't run into too many vegan athletes who are crushing it. There are like the 5 examples that people normally give when you mention that, but I haven't seen it in a major way or with any of the athletes that we have in our community. And yeah, That's interesting. I'm more along the lines of paleo myself, or at least just clean eating with proper macronutrients. So let's dive into to macros. So where do you think that everyone should track macros, or where's the starting point before macro tracking if someone's wanting to change their body composition through nutrition?
I don't think necessarily that everyone needs to track macros. For some people, I mean, it just depends, how into things they want to get and what their background is and what they're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to get ripped and you want abs, I feel macros is it's just so good because it keeps you so accountable and you have numbers to go off of and you have data, right? But for some people, if they're going to a CrossFit gym and they're just, they just want to lose like 20 pounds or something like that. And they can do that just through lifestyle changes, or structuring their plate in a different way. And they have no interest in tracking food or using MyFitnessPal or any of that stuff. Then yeah, tracking macros probably isn't for them. But even for those people who aren't super, super into CrossFit, or, they don't want abs, that sort of thing, or they don't want to go that deep into it, I guess. Macros can still be really beneficial. I remember when I was first getting into nutrition coaching, and I made my mom and my dad count macros.
Nice.
And my mom, she says she, quote, went on my program under duress just because she wanted to help me out and see this business take off for me. But my mom and my dad loved it. They have never seen a gym in their life. I actually don't think they've ever seen a gym in their life, and they don't plan to by any stretch. And they had no idea about MyFitnessPal and no idea what a macro even was. And they got on the program, and they just wanted to be healthy, right? My mom wanted to feel better in her clothes, and my dad, it was actually my mom where it was like, hey, your dad's getting a little heavy. We need to do something about this. She was just making so much fun of him. It's like, oh, you're looking like you're pregnant over there. They go back and forth and harass each other. It's funny. But they got on it, and, they learned so much about what was in the food they were eating and what was high in carbs and what might have been sabotaging their progress and what they could get away with and what they couldn't. And it was a really great experience for them, even though they, really aren't, I wouldn't picture them as my ideal client, Right.
And where do you sit on the macros, if it fits your macros, eat anything you want as long as it's within your macros, or hey, let's stick to your macros but also try and keep the diet clean? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I'm definitely in the camp of, okay, let's hit your macros but also let's keep your diet clean. Yeah, I realized that people could basically hit their macros by, consuming pizza and protein powder, I'm sure, if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. And although that totally could get you to aesthetically where you want to be, in terms of your energy and in terms of your long-term health, you're definitely missing out on something, because when I think about nutrition, I think about aesthetics, performance, and long-term health, right? And if you're just doing the macro piece, you're really missing out on the other two pillars of that equation.
I couldn't agree more. Awesome. Well, Morgan, let's get to the quick fire questions of the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Hardest workout I've ever done. This would be So back in the day when I was doing forestry school, we had to do a summer job in that field. And what I tried to do was, well, I did one summer, but was firefighting. And you had to pass a fitness test for this. And this was at a time when I wasn't in CrossFit. I was still fit, or at least I thought I was. But I took that test, and I really just, I failed it the first time. It was I can't remember everything in it, but you had to carry a 60-pound pump around for, I'm not sure, like, I can't remember the distances, and you had to put this 60-pound pack on and keep going up and down this incline for, I really don't even remember the numbers, but, you know, I'm only 120 pounds, so to be carrying this thing around with me and then also putting it on my pack and going up these super, super steep inclines and back down just over and over and over again, and then finishing it with a fire hose drag, I couldn't even do it. So that's like one of the hardest workouts that I've ever done. And once I got into CrossFit, I redid it, and I actually did get to go firefighting. But the first time I failed it, and to this day, that test gives me anxiety.
Yeah, that workout sounds pretty tough, and those experiences often can burn a hole right in our brain that we never forget.
Yeah,
all right.
for sure.
Now, in your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Honestly, on that same note, I would say working out. It's just so intense, and there's really nowhere you can run when you're in the pain of that workout. I mean, other than quitting, but you know, that wouldn't really be building mental toughness. Right. But I know for me, when I work out these days, my number one goal of every single workout is to mentally be strong, you know, and it's to pace myself in a way that I can just mentally power through things. And when I hit that point where it's like, oh, this is really hard, this is really tough, just know, like, again, the why I'm doing it, like, this is building my discipline muscle. And so yeah, I would say working out just for the intensity of it.
Awesome. I like that. All right. Now, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Definitely a kettlebell.
Nice.
Just so small. You can take it with you, traveling. I love to travel. And you can just do so much with it. So I would definitely say a kettlebell.
Okay. Yeah, I like that answer. All right. Now, the question of the show, what is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? This is 100% open-ended.
Action. I would definitely say the best advice I can give for anyone for becoming a better human is just take action. No matter what you want to start, no matter what you want to do, don't overthink it, you know, just go do it, right? And this kind of blends well with that question, you know, what would your chapter be? In the book, my chapter would be about your thoughts and your beliefs and your mindset, and how the power of your thoughts are so, I guess how your thoughts are so powerful, right? But the other piece to that equation is action. You have to act on that stuff. If you don't, nothing's going to happen, right? And I would say that would be my number one thing for people is to actually take action.
Yeah, the think and grow rich doesn't work real well if you don't do the action part.
100%.
Awesome. Okay, Morgan, where's the best place people can learn more about everything you have going on? I know you have the morning routine challenge that you're doing, nutrition coaching, everything like that. Where can they learn more?
So the morning routine challenge, you can go to 21 daysofchallenge.com. For my macro coaching, you can go to flexiblefoodie.com. There's also a meal prep guide and a macros guide on there. So if people are looking for some recipes to get themselves started, do some meal prep, or if they're looking to get some info on macros, there's 2 free guides on there. And then you can find me on Instagram, Lifting Lassie, and LASSIE, and on my Facebook page, so facebook.com/Morgan L. Gillis.
Awesome. And we will link to all of that in the show notes. Morgan, it's been a blast having you on. Thank you so much for your time and being on the Better Humanology podcast.
Thank you so much, Jared. Appreciate being here.
best. Losers always whine about their best.